Hello there. Thanks for joining me once again this week. TMAC is the name, DLI is the channel, Development, Empowerment and Leadership Initiative. On this channel, we release a video every week that we hope will help you on in your journey towards living your dream. How was your Valentine's celebration? I hope you had fun. And if you were here last week, the Valentine edition was on what? Tough love at the workplace. And that is a part of what we've been speaking about for a couple of weeks, where we have focused on leading in the workplace. Now, if you remember where we landed last week, I said this week I was going to go into the specifics of how do you practice tough love at the workplace. Coincidentally, Shegun wrote in as well, asking for the same thing. Thank you very much, Shegun, for writing in. And that is our main menu for this week. But before I get into the main dish, let me do a quick recap of the key essentials that we've covered so far in this series. And if you remember, at the center of our conversation is the fact that as a leader in the workplace, your job is to take a group of people, note the emphasis on group, and transform them into a team. Please note the emphasis on team. And we also shared with you that that journey is a 5-staged journey, all right? Where the first is forming, the second is storming, the third is norming, the fourth is performing, and the fifth is adjourning. And the videos that we've shared also told you your role at the various stages in the team formation journey. Now, what we said last week is that the journey from one stage to another is not very linear and distinct. Sometimes they bleed into one another. Sometimes you go back and then go forward and go back to go forward. But the one thing that you need to be aware of is that the performing stage is not a stage of living happily ever after when you get there. There are things that need to be done by the leader in that stage. One of it is what we started last week, which is tough love, which is essentially speaking about maintaining discipline. Now, to the main menu of this week. How do you go about practicing tough love in a manner that it does not breed animosity, it does not cause problem? You can actually achieve the real desire that you have in mind. And simply put, the answer is implement an effective and efficient performance management system, period. In my journey, either as a consultant or as an employee at the various countries, various levels, various organizations, I have not seen anything else that can transform an organization, that can change behavior, that can build culture as a well-implemented and rigorously pursued performance management system. Unfortunately, the 13-minute video, 12-minute video will not be sufficient to do justice to this material. So, if you will need us to implement this for you, please feel free to reach out, because this is something I'm extremely passionate about, and you will be shocked as to what you can achieve if only you can implement it properly and you can be committed to it. But for your sake as a leader, whether your organization is currently running one or not, you can do one within your circle of influence. Your 3-man team, your 7-man team, your department, your unit. You do not need to wait for anybody before you embark on implementing a performance management system. Why? What gets measured gets done. What gets measured is easier to manage. So, even if all you are doing is to drive your team's productivity and ensure that you maintain the performance at that stage, this will yield you great dividend. Now, let me get into the specifics. There are certain fundamentals that you need to know, that you need to buy into, that you need to be committed to if you want to run a performance management system properly. I'm not really particular about whatever name you call it, balance scorecard, some call it 360-degree review, whatever name you call it. These five essentials that I'm going to share with you are the center of an effective and efficient performance management system. And you can start now. Number one, you must be clear about your requirement. The target, the expectation, the required level of performance must not be ambiguous. If you remember, in the performing stage, you are just coming out of the norming stage where the rules are being agreed. If you are not pretty clear, very deliberate and specific about what you are trying to measure, you leave the room for people and your team members to manipulate you and dribble you to see whether they can get away with it or not. And therefore, the first fundamental is your requirements must be super clear. I'm sure you've heard this acronym before, SMART. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, sometimes I call it audacious, realistic, and time-bound. Your requirement of that team, of that individual, of the interplay of the team, of the interplay of the teams must be very specific and must be very SMART compliant. Let me give you an example. When you talk about revenue target, if you only say your team should achieve $100 million revenue target for this month, if you are not very specific about what do you call revenue, is it invoice delivered? Is it cash in the bank? Is it service delivered? Now, these three levels will yield three different numbers. So your requirement must be super clear. The clearer it is, the easier it is for those who mean to chase it to know what they are chasing. And the easier is it for you to know those who are not performing without having to get into plenty English. That would be pillar number one. Pillar number two is that the how of the measurement, the basis of the measurement must be very clear. Meaning you are saying that we are going to measure this as at the 31st of December this year, every year. Or we are going to have a cutoff point as at the 15th of the month. Or when you are delivering a report, the timestamp on your mail is what we take as the submission time. Or the time you clock in the biometric register is what we take as your resumption time. You need to be clear as to the how you will measure. So the first thing is you are clear about what you are chasing. The second thing is that you are clear as to how you are going to measure it. And the third is that you must then deliberately put in an operational tracking system. And I repeat, emphasis on the word operational, meaning the system that tracks the performance of the team must be something that moves with them every day as they go. You cannot run an efficient and effective performance management system in an anecdotal manner. It cannot just be whatever you remember. Why? The mind can only hold so much. So usually in an anecdotal tracking system, the last thing you remember is the last thing you want to judge the person by. Meaning a good performer all through the year that had a blip towards the performance evaluation system, that is all you probably will remember and you want to judge him by. And a poor performer who just suddenly has a flash towards the evaluation time, that's what you remember, and you forget that that guy has wasted 11 months out of 12 with low performance. So it is your job to find a way to operationalize the tracking system. In fact, once you check the first two boxes, which is you are clear about your requirements, you are clear about how you are going to measure, let the responsibility of doing the tracking also be borne by your team members so that they take ownership of their own performance. Meaning that if you are to submit your report 8 a.m. every Monday, the responsibility of taking the time of submission should not just be for the system or for the organization. That staff must also find a way of keeping his or her record. What that does, it completely changes the paradigm of the individual. And when he or she is missing the target, he does not need somebody to come and tell him or her before he either shapes up or ships out. That is the third pillar. Now, the fourth pillar is that your performance evaluation timing and process must be a deliberate process. Meaning that you cannot just do this by the corner side. When it is time for performance evaluation, everybody in the organization must know that it is time for the performance evaluation. You must make it a big deal. Remember that the performance management system is not a trap. The performance management system is not an ambush. The performance management system is a deliberate effort at driving the behavior, the effort, the energy of your team towards the desired outcome. So, if you are going to do the evaluation, it's not something to spring up as a surprise. Everybody must know. The good performers must look forward to it. Those who are poorly performing must dread it, because you are not supposed to just be carrying dead weight. That was part of the extra content that was shared last week. And if you missed it, you better join the Telegram channel where this extra content is being shared, so that the weekly videos are enriched for you on a week by week basis. Now back to what I was saying. So I've shared 4 pillars. Remember, number 1, there must be clarity of your expectation. Number 2, there must be clarity of how you are going to measure. Number 3, there must be an operational tracking system. And number 4, your measurement time must be deliberate, must be a big deal. Then the last, but certainly not the least, is that you must follow through on your promised consequences. And I use that word loosely so I can accommodate both sides of the divide. I repeat, you must follow through on your promised consequences. Meaning that whatever you have said will be the benefit of the performer, a bonus, a training, a promotion, whatever it is, you must follow through. Or for the poor performer, where you have promised that if they fall into the poor performance group, you put them on the performance improvement plan, and that if they fall into that range in 2 consecutive cycles, they will be out of the organization. You must have the courage to follow through on that. These 5 steps are so critical that if you commit yourself to them and you practice them. Now, let me give you a caveat. This will not happen suddenly like that. At the minimum, from experience, you need at least 2 cycles for the message to sink in. And I can share experiences with you of how this can save a team member's career, can make people go above and beyond, blood on the floor, do whatever they need to do to hit their target, to the benefit of the team, to the benefit of the organization, and to the benefit of themselves as individuals. In one of my journeys, I've seen a situation where the lowest staff in the ranking in cycle 1 became the highest ranking employee in cycle 2. And it was so glaring that even everybody in the team attested to the fact that Cosmas, that was his name, that Cosmas now was the best performer. What shook him up? a frank performance management system. Tough love in the workplace. That is what you need to do. There are other things that surround this when it comes to implementation. Like I said, we are available to help you implement if you are interested in this. But if you take the 5 pillars I've given you and you commit yourself to doing them starting from now, yes, now, don't wait for your organization, don't wait for any fanfare. Start right now where you are with what you have, and you will be shocked that you will not just have a performing team, you will be able to maintain that performance because tough love becomes a natural consequence of the performance of a well-implemented performance management system. I'm sorry I've gone a bit long-winded this week, so I got to run now. One more episode to focus on something that happened at the performance stage, and then I wrap up, and then we go to the next bus stop. Always a pleasure to have you here. Please share your comments. We've seen an increase in the number of comments of recent. Please keep them coming. Like I said, join the Telegram group. If you don't know how, check for the announcement video on this channel, and then subscribe as well so that as we release the videos, you get to see it yourself. Once again, Tim Ag is my name. All I'm passionate about is what? Make a little difference. Keep me the date here next week as we continue the conversation. Thank you one more time and see you next week. Bye.